Welcome installers. What you'll see in this DVD is a product that you may not have known even existed. It's Underdecking from Quality Edge. And what we're going to show you is the manufacturer's recommended installation process. Now, this Underdecking DVD is separated into two sections, step-by-step instructions and frequently asked questions. And for your convenience, you can go directly to a section or watch the program in its entirety. But be sure to hang on to this DVD because within the frequently asked questions section, you'll find many useful tips and recommended procedures. To properly install Underdecking, you'll need the following tools: a cordless drill, metal snips, a standard hammer, a speed square, a caulk gun with butyl-based caulk or butyl tape, a pencil, utility blade, a zip tool, which is used to remove vinyl siding, a hand brake for bending aluminum, a 25-foot tape measure, a skill saw with a metal cutting blade and a wood cutting or ripping blade, and a 10-foot or larger field brake. Before we get started with Quality Edge installation professional Ben DeGraff, it's imperative that the flashing installed with the deck was done properly. This begins with the ledger board, which is the board that's been attached to the home to support the weight of the deck. It should be flat against the house. Make sure the ledger board wasn't installed over the top of the siding. Flashing should run behind the siding and over the top of the ledger board. Decking material should then lie on top of this. If the flashing is absent or fails to channel water away from the house, this must be corrected. You have two options. One, remove the deck boards closest to the ledger board and install flashing. Or two, install flashing under the ledger board and against the wall. Once you're satisfied with the integrity of the ledger board flashing, you're ready to create a beautiful underdeck that will last many years.
The first step is to decide where we're going to drain the system. The location where the water ends up is always critical because of what can happen around foundations and drainage and pooling water and mosquitoes and all those things. So in this particular case, because we already have a beam out here, we can put the gutter on this beam. We can slope our panels down to this gutter and drain away from the house. The slope of the underdeck ceiling is obviously critical because the water needs to drain in the panels out to the gutter. But in most cases, an excessive amount of slope can be avoided. And what I like to do to determine my slope is to let the objects in the placement of my underdeck ceiling determine where the gutter goes and therefore the G-channel goes. All right, so I'm going to demonstrate to you now what I mean about the slope discussion. I'm going to temporarily install this pan, and I'm going to use that as my guide to determine the height of my gutter and my G-channel. As you can see, I've temporarily installed a carrier, and the reason I say temporarily is because that carrier is going to come back down once I've determined my G-channel and gutter locations, and it's going to get moved over into its proper position. So what I'm going to do with one carrier up, and it's going to be the carrier on the high side, I'm going to put a pan into it. I'm going to put a little piece of G-channel on the high side. And on the low side over here on the beam, I've got a little piece of gutter that I'm going to use as my guide. And now I'm going to determine the location of my gutter here. Because I'd like to have my G-channel all the way up to the bottom of that utility trim, I'm going to keep raising this gutter until I take all the bend out of the panel, and that's going to be where the gutter gets installed. So I raise that up until it's a nice straight line. I go ahead and mark the wall, and that's the high side of my gutter. So my next step is going to be to install the G-channel. The G-channel gets installed right on top of the siding. I want to use at least 1.5 inch to a 2-inch screw to install the G-channel because I want to make sure that I get all the way back to the sheathing with my fastener. Now, before I do that, I want to seal the back of this G-channel. And the importance of sealing the back side of this G-channel is that that's what keeps the water from running behind it down the wall. So before I put my G-channel up, I want to pre-miter the end where the side cap comes into it. And the reason I do this is it's a lot easier to get a nice cut on my miter on the ground like this, where it's right in front of me, than trying to do it when it's already up on the wall. The G-channel comes 10 feet long, so inevitably you're going to have to join pieces together. As you can see, I've made bird's beak cuts out of each of the angles on that G-channel all the way around. I take those cuts and I fold the tabs in, and that allows this piece of G-channel to fit into the one next to it. All right, the last step in installing the G-channel is any place you have a joint in the G-channel. As you can see right here, this is my joint. I'm going to take a piece of window tape and I'm going to put that over the top of that joint so the water coming down the wall, running over that joint, won't leak. Then I'm also going to seal with another bead of caulk right where the top of the G-channel comes into the siding. I'm going to put a bead of sealant right there. So now you can see I finished putting up my G-channel. That's all the way on the wall. And what I've also done is this temporary row of carriers here, this first row, I've continued that all the way through my system so that I can put up 4 temporary panels that are going to be my guide for how high to install my gutter. I've previously marked the center of this gutter and the center of my beam. So what I do is I line up those 2 center marks. I bring the gutter right up to the panels, so the panels are resting on the beam. And then I'm going to go ahead and pin the middle. And then what I do is I work my way back down to the high side, the high end of the gutter, and I'm going to straighten it out and permanently fix it, working from high end to low end. So now that I've set my high side of my gutter, using my panel as my indicator as to where it needs to be, now I'm going to work my way down to the low side of the gutter, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to bring it up to where my panel slant tells me it wants it. Go ahead and install that. Now what I do is I sight between my 2 endpoints and I look for, again, I look for belly or crown. And I can see that where I temporarily pin the gutter in the middle here, it's too low. So what I've got to do is go down to the middle and raise that up. You can see it in there where when I took the screw out, how the gutter kind of popped up to where it wanted to be. I'll go back and check it one more time. Now I've got a nice straight line. Now I can go ahead and put the rest of the gutter screws in. Okay, as you can see now, I have my gutter installed. And I'm going to do one last check to make sure I have good drainage in my gutter. I'll measure from the bottom of my beam to the bottom of my gutter here, and I have 3 inches. Now I've already measured the far side, and it's 2.5 inches. So that tells me I have a 1/2 inch fall from this end to the 20 feet down at that end, which ends up to be a 1/4 inch and 10 feet, which is just what I want. And you'll also notice that I've taken down that temporary row of carriers over here and those 4 panels that I was using to align my gutter height over here. So those are gone. Now I'm ready to install the side cap. This is the side cap piece. If you'll remember, I pre-mitered my G-channel over here for the side cap to fit in. But now what I have to do on the gutter side is the lip of the gutter needs to get notched out so that that side cap will rest down in there and the panels will be at the same elevation. So again, what I'm going to do is line up the leg of my side cap with the inside of the rim joist, have it come straight down so that this top surface of my side cap lines up with this top surface of my gutter, and then I go ahead and mark the gutter where I'm going to cut it out so that the side cap comes down and drains into the gutter. I'm going to go ahead and cut those 2 lines, score the bottom of it with a utility knife, and crack it out. So now I'm going to go ahead and put this up. First thing I do is I set it into my notch on my gutter. Second thing I do is I fit it around this column like that. And then lastly, I'm going to push this back and get it up into the miter in my G-channel. Once I have it in position where I want it, I go ahead and zip screw it right into my inside of my rim joist. So here I am putting up the second side cap, and this will complete the aluminum framework, and then I'm ready to go ahead and put up my panels.